Shrimad Bhagavatam ki, Shri Radha Radhanath ki, Shri Giri Govardhan ki, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu ki, Shri Radha Damodar ki, Kartik Vrata ki, Shri Sitaram Lakshman Hanuman ki, Gopranande, all glories to this, all devotees, all glories to this, all devotees, all glories to this, all devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya.
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 Shrimad Bhagavatam, Canto 4, Chapter 24, chanting the song sung by Lord Shiva, 20 verse 28. Correct?
Yes.
28. Ya Param Ramhasa Sakshat Shri Gunaj Jiva Samgita Bhagavantam Vasudeva Prapana Sa Priyo Hi Me Ya Param Ramasa Sakshat Shri Gunaj Jiva Samgita Bhagavantam Vasudeva Prapana Sa Priyo Hi Me Ya Param Ramasa Sakshat Shri Gunaj Jiva Samgita Bhagavantam Vasudeva Prapana Sa Priyo Hi Me Ya Param Ramasa Sakshat Shri Gunaj Jiva Samgita Bhagavantam Vasudeva Prapana Sa Priyo Hi Me.
It's too small. Garland, it's too small.
Anyone like to chant the sense?
Trigunarjiva Samgita Bhagavantam Vasudevam Prapanasa Priyo Hi Me Yak Param Ramha Sakshat Trigunarjiva Samgita Bhagavantam Vasudevam Prapanaksa Priyo Hi Me Yak Param Ramha Sakshat Trigunarjiva Samgita Bhagavantam Vasudevam Prapanaksa Priyo Hi Me
Ya Anyone Param Transcendental Ramhasa of the controller Sakshat directly Trigunath from the three modes of material nature Jiva Samgita living entities called by the name Jivas Bhagavantam unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead Vasudeva unto Krishna Prapanna surrender He Priya very dear He undoubtedly may of me. Translation. Lord Shiva continued, any person who is surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Krishna, the controller of everything, material nature as well as the living entity, is actually very dear to me. Purport by Srila Prabhupada. And it is, anyway, it's fairly substantial purport. Yes. Now Lord Shiva explains the reason he has personally come before the princes. It is because all the princes are devotees of Lord Krishna, as stated in Bhagavad Gita chapter 7 verse 19. Bahunam jandanamante gyanavam mahaprabhajate vasudeva sarvamiti samahatma sudolavaha. After many births and deaths, he was actually in knowledge, surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Lord Shiva is rarely seen by common men, and similarly a person who is fully surrendered unto Vasudeva, Krishna, is also very rarely seen, because a person who is fully surrendered unto the Supreme Lord is very rare. Samahatma Sadurlabha. Consequently, Lord Shiva came especially to see the Prachetas because they were fully surrendered unto the Supreme Personality of Godhead, Vasudeva. Vasudeva is also mentioned in the beginning of Shrimad Bhagavatam in the mantra, Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Since Vasudeva is the ultimate truth, Lord Shiva openly proclaims that one who is a devotee of Lord Vasudeva, who is surrendered to Lord Krishna, is actually very dear to him. Lord Vasudeva, Krishna, is worshipable not only by ordinary living entities, but by demigods like Lord Shiva, Lord Brahma, and others. Yam Brahma Varunendra Rudra Maruta Stuvanti Divyai Stavai. Shrimad Bhagavatam 12:13:1. Krishna is worshipped by Lord Brahma, Lord Shiva, Varuna, Indra, Chandra, and all other demigods. That is also the situation with the devotee. Indeed, one who takes to Krishna consciousness immediately becomes very dear to anyone who is simply finding out and beginning to understand what Krishna consciousness actually is. Similarly, all the demigods are also trying to find out who is actually surrendered to Lord Vasudeva. Because the Pracheta princes were surrendered to Vasudeva, Lord Shiva willingly came forth to see them. Lord Vasudeva, or Krishna, is described in Bhagavad Gita as Purushottama. Actually, he is the enjoyer, Purusha, and the supreme, Uttama, as well. He is the enjoyer of everything, the Prakriti and the Purusha. Being influenced by the three modes of material nature, the living entity tries to dominate material nature. But actually, he is not the Purusha, the enjoyer, but Prakriti, as described in Bhagavad Gita chapter 7 verse 5. Aparayam tasmanyam prakritam prakritim vidime param. Thus the jiva, or living entity, is actually Prakriti, or the marginal energy of the Supreme Lord. Being associated with material energy, he tries to lord it over the material nature. This is also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, verse 7. Mamai vansa jiva loke, jiva bhuta sanatana, manana shasnan indriyani, prakriti snani karshati. Which means, the living entities in this conditioned world are my eternal fragmental parts. Due to conditioned life, they're struggling very hard with the six senses, which include the mind. By endeavoring to dominate material nature, the living entity simply struggles hard for existence. Indeed, he struggles so hard to enjoy himself that he cannot even enjoy the material resources. Thus he is sometimes called Prakriti or Jiva, for he is situated in the marginal potency. When the living entity is covered with the three modes of material nature, he is called Jiva Samkita. There are two kinds of living entities. One is called Kshara, and the other is Akshara. Kshara refers to those who have fallen down and become conditioned, and akshara refers to those who are not conditioned. The vast majority of living entities live in the spiritual world and are called akshara. They're in the position of Brahman, pure spiritual existence. They're different from those who have been conditioned by the three modes of material nature. being above both akshara and akshara, Lord Krishna, Vasudeva, is described in Bhagavad Gita chapter 15, verse 18, as Purushottama. The impersonalists may say that Vasudeva is the impersonal Brahman, but actually the impersonal Brahman is subordinate to Krishna, as also confirmed in Bhagavad Gita chapter 14, verse 27, Brahmano hi pratishtaham. That Krishna is the source of the impersonal Brahman is also confirmed in Brahma Samhita chapter 5, verse 40. Yasya prabha prabhavato jagadanda koti. The impersonal Brahman is nothing but the effulgence or bodily rays of Krishna. And in those bodily rays, there are innumerable universes floating. Thus, in all respects, Vasudeva, Krishna, is the Supreme Lord, and Lord Shiva is very satisfied with those who are completely surrendered to him. Complete surrender is desired by Krishna, as he indicates in the last chapter of Bhagavad Gita, chapter 18, verse 66. Sarvadharma parijyaja mam ekam sharanam praja. The word sakshat, meaning directly, is very significant. There are many so-called devotees, but actually they're only karmis and jnanis, for they're not directly devotees of Lord Krishna. The karmis sometimes offer the results of their activities to Lord Vasudeva. And this offering is called karmarpanam. These are considered to be fruit of activities, for the karmis consider Lord Vishnu to be one of the demigods, like Lord Shiva and Lord Brahma. Because they consider Lord Vishnu to be on the same level with the demigods, they contend that surrendering to the demigods is as good as surrendering unto Vasudeva. This contention is denied herein, because if it were true, Lord Shiva would have said that surrender unto him, Lord Vasudeva, Vishnu, or Brahma, is the same. However, Lord Shiva does not say this, because he himself surrenders unto Vasudeva, and whoever else surrenders unto Vasudeva is very, very dear to him. This is expressed herein openly. The conclusion is that a devotee of Lord Shiva is not dear to Lord Shiva, but a devotee of Lord Krishna is very dear to Lord Shiva. Yapara Brahmasa Sakshat Trigunashtiya Samgita Bhagavantam Vasudevam Prapanasa Priyo Me. Translation: Lord Shiva continued, any person who is surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, the controller of everything, material nature as well as the living entity, is actually very dear to me. Namo Vishnu Hare Krishna Krishna Bhutale Shrimad Bhagavatam Swami Namane Namaste Saraswati Devi Gauravani Vichare Nirvishesha Shri Gastrija Chatarne Vanchikam Chudrivyas Chakri Pasindubhya Evacha Paritana Padmebhyo Vaishnave Yamano Namaha Sri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Sri Advaita Gadadhara Shivasari Gaura Bhakta Hare Krishna, Krishna Krishna, Hare Hare, Hare Rama, Rama Rama, Hare Hare. Yes, happy Diwali. mention very briefly why we are observing Diwali today, whereas, at least one, I think, could say the vast majority of people who are following the Vedic tradition or Hinduism, they celebrated yesterday, isn't it? And I imagine we all heard the fireworks and things going off last night, which is an integral part of Diwali. I remember once being in Jaipur on Diwali, Diwali as yesterday was. And outside the place where we were staying, there was one young man with a pack of, sort of smallish firecrackers, the ones that go bang. Yeah. And he had a pile, I would say some thousands. And he had a candle. And the whole night, from, I don't know, when dark, he was taking just one at a time, lighting it, throwing it. Next one, lighting it, throwing it. And we managed to sleep somehow. And it was, pretty noisy there in Jaipur on Diwali. And when we got up the next morning, sort of 4-ish or whatever, the young man was still there. Sure, he was very dedicated, you could say. So the thing is this is the thing, that approximately 100 years, it may be 112, it's just in the vicinity of 100 years, the astronomical calculations for, the titis, Shri Radha Radha, Shri Giri Govardhan, Shri Chaitanya Mahaprabhu, Shri Radha Damodar, Shri Sitaram Bhavan Ki Jai. Yes, they have to be recalculated. Srila Bhaktisiddhanta talks about this. He did an astronomical treatise, Surya Siddhanta, and a few things he did along these lines. And he made the point that the positionings of the planets change. Not just sort of change all of a sudden, but there's a very slow process of change, but nonetheless a process of change. And therefore the titis, the special events, which are based on and timed according to the positions of the different planets, every 100 years, or if I remember correctly, it's a little more than that, slightly more, the calculations have to be redone. So, if I remember correctly, he himself did recalculations, and so therefore the different events, I think so many of you would be aware, Janmashtami, we celebrate at least often, if not usually, the day later, etc., etc. All these things, or so many of these things. Sometimes they coincide, but generally we're a day later because they, the others, did not recalculate the last time. They did not recalculate. So they're stuck on the calculations of approximately 200 years ago. But the thing is, the positions of the sort of heavenly bodies have changed. So, in other words, when they may think it's a courtesy for example. Not that many of them follow it at all, but those who do. It's actually not a courtesy. It's a courtesy the next day. And if you observe a courtesy when it's not a courtesy, well, it's just not. And then you don't observe a courtesy when it is a courtesy, and you go back to eating grains, etc. Well, that's a problem. That's a problem. Because above all, even, maybe not above all, but certainly very emphatically, Lord Chaitanya once asked his mother, Mother Sachi, will you please do something for me? And Mother Sachi said, yes, what would you like? And Lord Chaitanya, it's in Chaitanya Charitamrita, told her, will you please observe the courtesy? Will you please do that? Observe the courtesy like properly. And Mother Sachi agreed, and then she did. So, yeah, because there are real implications if you don't observe the courtesy. It's very severe, actually, if you don't observe the courtesy. So, anyway, that's the reason why we're observing Diwali today and not yesterday. Hare Krishna. Anyway, so back to this verse, 4th Canto, chapter 24, chanting the song sung by Lord Shiva, verse 28. And you can see how Prabhupada gave it it wasn't like a very long purport as you get for some few verses, but as purports go, it is definitely one of the longer ones. And the message is extremely important. It is Lord Shiva speaking. Lord Shiva is very prominent, of course, and popular. And he is making this, it's just such an important point, and he's making it very strongly that anyone who surrendered to Krishna, to the Supreme Personality of Godhead, it is very dear to him. The words he uses in the Sanskrit, prapana sa priya, or priyo, he made. And if you're following the word for word, priya, of course, means dear or very dear, it's translated as it. But he means undoubtedly, certainly. It's a term of emphasis. So it's not just that Prabhupada translated priya or priyaha as very dear, but then there's priyaha, he, which really means that such a person who is prapana, surrendered, Vasudeva unto Krishna, is undoubtedly very dear to me, to Lord Shiva. And as Prabhupada explains right at the beginning of the purport, that Lord Shiva, he did something the fact that he came and met with the Prachetas as he has done, it's very unusual that Lord Shiva would do something like that. Yes, so therefore Prabhupada begins the purport. Now Lord Shiva explains the reason he has personally come before the princes. In other words, you would not have expected, it is not just normal, just, a typical sort of thing by any means, that he has come and kind of intercepted the Prachetas as they're going on their special mission. But he has come for very special purposes, special reasons. Otherwise, and that is because they they are devotees. Prabhupada says then it's because all the princes are devotees of Lord Krishna, but they're not just devotees. If one can say like this, like normal devotees, we would not really say there's such a thing or such a person as a normal devotee, as opposed to, a special devotee. Of course, there are degrees there, as they might say, there are devotees and there are devotees. So there's certainly different levels of devotees, there's no doubt about that. But these prachetas, they're really special devotees. They're very, very dedicated devotees. Prabhupada then goes on to quote famous Bhagavad Gita, chapter 7, verse 19. Bhagavan Jananamante Yanavanam Prapajate Vasudeva Saravamiti Samahatma Sudurlabha. After many births and deaths, he who is actually in knowledge surrenders unto me, knowing me to be the cause of all causes and all that is. Such a great soul is very rare. Sa Mahatma literally means that great soul. Su Durlabha, the word Durlabha or Durlabha means special or rare. Yes. But now Su Durlabha means very rare. That the Su prefix is a prefix of emphasis, basically meaning very, whatever it is. Just like he means undoubtedly, whatever the specific term is or type of person is, just undoubtedly, in this case, very dear. But then Sudurlabha is very rare, very special. So yes, obviously the princes, they are, the way Prabhupada has structured the purport, the princes are in that category of being Samahatma Sudurlabha. They are those great souls who are very rare, very special. Yes, otherwise Lord Shiva, he wouldn't bother. He's got plenty to do. And, he's, of course, as a demigod, he's very special. But amongst the devotees, he's very special. He has there are two aspects, you could say, of Lord Shiva. One is that he's a big demigod. It's his duty, it's his service to Lord Krishna to stimulate people who want to enjoy materially, to stimulate them to make, you could say, like a special effort, some special effort to get their enjoyment. And when they do that, then he may give them. This is the point. Yeah. So that's one aspect of his position. His service to the Supreme Personality of Godhead is to, when people do make the special effort to worship him for something material, he gives it. If you don't do anything, but you want something material, then he won't give it to you. So similarly, if you're a devotee, but you're not like Sudurlabha or Priya, he, not like undoubtedly very dear. If you're not like that, then he will not come. He'll go to some others or do something else. So that's the second part of his nature, that he himself is a devotee, Vaishnavadam Yata Shambhu, that the verse which that line comes in is right at the end of the last verse, the last chapter of the whole Shrimad Bhagavatam, last chapter of the 12th canto. And it's not actually the last verse, but literally, but it's within the last maybe 10 verses or something like that. So, it's a very special position that's given, that Lord Shiva is the greatest devotee. Of course, in Krishna consciousness, we have great, greater, greatest, then even greater, and even more greatest, and as we say in Chatsworth, more greater. Double emphasis, more greater. But literally it's actually like that. Just because he's stated to be the greatest devotee doesn't mean there's no one greater than him. Because you get the greatest and you get the more greatest, and then you get the even more greatest, until you reach Srimati Radharani. Right, so like this. So Lord Shiva, though, the fact that he has come, just in and of itself means that these prachetas are very, very special devotees. I don't know about any of you. Did Lord Shiva ever come to any of you? Well, I can tell you he didn't come to me, because we're not on the level of the prachetas. Although, we're sort of giving it a good go. We're trying hard, usually. So therefore, Prabhupada makes the point, just as the purport sort of develops, that Lord Shiva is rarely seen by common people. It's just, in fact, generally speaking, he's not seen by common people. It would only really be like when the Supreme Personality of Godhead appears, then some ordinary people, actually ordinary people, they may actually get to see him. And then Lord Shiva may be there, because when the Supreme Lord comes, he's often there or around in the vicinity. So therefore the common people might see him under such unusual circumstances, but otherwise, truly common people, they just don't see Lord Shiva. And Prabhupada extends the point. Of course, you can say that Lord Krishna is rarely seen, but Prabhupada, that's certainly a fact. But just as Lord Shiva is rarely seen by common men, so similarly a person who's fully surrendered unto Lord Krishna is also very rarely seen. And why is that? Because such people who are fully surrendered, means very elevated pure devotees, they themselves are very rare. Samahatma Sudurlabha. Not just Durlabha or Durlabha, but Sudurlabha. Yeah. Very rare. So, yes, the prachetas were very surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Lord Shiva, knowing that and knowing they were sort of passing by or something like that, then he felt, I must make a special effort to come and especially see the prachetas, because they are such rare people, because they are fully surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead. And Prabhupada makes a very interesting point right at the end of the purport that a devotee of Lord Shiva is not dear to Lord Shiva. Or to speak of being very dear. This is actually how he concludes the whole purport. The conclusion is that a devotee of Lord Shiva is not dear to Lord Shiva, but a devotee of Lord Krishna is very dear to Lord Shiva. In fact, those who are devotees, of course, the term devotee generally, and Prabhupada makes this point elsewhere, that this term devotee, which means when you really get down to it, an advanced devotee, a real devotee, not sort of half and half, one foot in Krishna consciousness, the other foot somewhere else. A devotee, and it can be understood by the term, is one who is devoted. He's actually devoted to Lord Krishna. And devoted means he's not devoted at all to anything else or anyone else. Then he's a devotee. Otherwise, you must call him a mixed devotee. And when it comes to Lord Shiva, the vast and really vast number of people who may use the term about themselves, who may say, I am a devotee of Lord Shiva, but actually they're not devoted in the sense of pure devotional service. They have some dedication, of course, they have some dedication, and they're focused, and they worship in different ways. But the bottom line in why they're doing all those things is because they're wanting to get certain things from him. That's why. And Lord Shiva, other than as a Vaishnava, he can help aspiring Vaishnavas to become better Vaishnavas. This is why he has his own sampradaya, the Rudra sampradaya, because as a devotee, when he's really in that mood, he's leading devotees and helping devotees to become better devotees. But in his capacity, but that means the people are not just devotees of Lord Shiva, they're actually devotees of the Supreme Lord, and he's helping them. He's helping them. So, but those who are in the general sense, who are devotees or worshippers or followers of Lord Shiva, they're doing that not because they want to become better devotees of Krishna. It's because they want to get certain material things. This is the fact, actually. And like we said, there are these two aspects to the nature of Lord Shiva. They're both very strong. One is he's a demigod, and it's a big thing that he's a demigod. But the other thing is he's a Vaishnava, and a great Vaishnava. And in that capacity, as the head of his sampradaya, he is not helping anyone within his sampradaya to just get material enjoyments. He's helping them to progress in Krishna consciousness and hopefully to become pure devotees of the Supreme Personality of Godhead. But otherwise, in the general sense as a demigod, you cannot, Prabhupada makes the point, you cannot really use the term devotee because they're not really devoted in the sense of pure love to please please him without any expectation or even any hope for getting something material. In fact, if there's any presence of an idea or even a partial desire to get something from Lord Shiva, then that's not pure devotion. It's not pure devotion. So like this, Lord Shiva, because Lord Shiva is very famous as Ashutosh. Asha means desire, and Tosh means to satisfy. That he does satisfy the desires of people who worship him relatively easily. He doesn't sort of put them through the ringer. Are you sure you want a bigger TV to watch? I don't know what the latest Shrimad Bhagavatam movie is. To watch that. Are you sure? Are you sure you're sure? Are you sure you're sure you're sure? It's like, do like that. He's fairly liberal. But, and this is another point Prabhupada makes, if we look at Lord Shiva, when you see Lord Shiva, there's really no mention of Lord Shiva living in a palace. When it comes to Krishna, Vishnu, Narayana, palaces are there. But Lord Shiva, generally and more or less only, lives under a tree. Yeah, he doesn't even want to speak of not having a palace, doesn't even have a hut, or want to speak of just an ordinary house or something. And he doesn't have fancy clothes, Christian Dior, sari, and such things. Pierre Cardin, dhoti, and kurta set. If there aren't, I'm sure there will be, in due course. So, he just wears, oftentimes he wears either just a piece of cloth, which has been thrown away by someone because it's just had its day, or he wears sometimes animal skins. And that's what he wears. And he doesn't, anyway, So the people come, and they come with their shopping lists. Not exactly shopping lists, but lists of things they want. And what's he doing? You see him, he's sitting there with his beads, and he's chanting. Previously he was chanting Ram, Ram, Ram. But after the appearance of Lord Chaitanya, he was chanting the Hare Krishna Mahamantra. So there he is, sitting under the tree with his, barely basic clothing on, and chanting like that. That's Lord Shiva. But then along comes some materialistic person who wants, a new TV, a new Mercedes-Benz or two, or three would be nice also. A bigger, more fancy house, and etc., all these things. So Lord Shiva just says, okay, what do you want? Because that person interrupts him. He's there chanting the names of the Lord, and he's in ecstasy. Now someone has interrupted him because they wanted a new TV to watch Shah Rukh Khan on. And what does Lord Shiva think? Jai Shah Rukh Khan? Sorry, no. He doesn't think like that at all. Got no interest whatsoever. So the person says, I want a bigger than this TV. How big is this one?
I don't
I
know.
know, it's pretty big. I want an even bigger one than they have in the Hare Krishna temple. So I can watch the latest Bollywood. And Lord Shiva doesn't say, look, are you sure? Do you really think you do want it? And, what's wrong with the smaller one? No, he just said, okay, take it. Take it. And you want to see these Benz? A big black one with tinted windows? Take a Rolls Royce. Take a couple of Rolls Royces. You want a palace? Tell you what, take Buckingham Palace and, whatever, some other palace. Take 2 palaces and like that. And just go. Just take these things and go. Because he wants to get back to his chanting. Because that's what he likes. And you can see he's giving people these things, wealth and material facilities. But he doesn't even have an old, one of the old TVs. What do you call that? Anybody know what I mean? One of the old ones, sort of kind of thick, squarish. He doesn't have any TV. Doesn't have a Rolls Royce. Doesn't have a Mercedes. He doesn't even have a, whatever, Hyundai. All he uses is Nandi the bull. And bulls are not known to move very quickly. So not particularly comfortable. Yeah, and again, palace doesn't even have like a shed, a windy house or whatever, if you know what I mean. These little things you can put in your garden, keep the garden tools in. He doesn't even have one of them. But people come saying they want a palace, he gives them a palace. So what does that mean? It means he knows, it's extremely clear to him, that all these things that I have to give people because it's my duty. It's my duty to do this as a demigod. It's not that I volunteered for the job, but he just got appointed. As they say, we're looking for volunteers, and if no one volunteers, we will appoint volunteers. If you follow the idea. No, it's his duty, and he does his duty. Just like his wife, Durga, in the first canto. It's very interesting. I forget the exact verse, or it's around chapter 6 or 7 or something, 5 maybe. Then Durga comes before, Durga is there, and Krishna has come, but she will not come. She is standing back. She's standing back because she knows it is my duty to him, but it's my duty to put people into illusion, to put people into Maya and make them forget him. And so she says that she does not like doing this duty. Therefore, when he comes, she doesn't want to come forward to meet him. She stays back because she's feeling embarrassed that I have to do this. It's sort of like a terrible service of putting people in illusion and taking them away from the Lord. So yes, so like that. So anyway, Lord Shiva, if people had enough intelligence, which unfortunately is extremely rare, then they would see that Lord Shiva, who we're worshipping to get things, means obviously he can just get anything, anytime, as much as he likes. But he just doesn't have any of those things at all. Rather, he's chanting on his beads. They have intelligence, they say, hey, wait a minute, that this worship of Lord Shiva like this, it cannot be the right thing. It's just plainly obvious for people who have eyes to see. But otherwise, people are just blinded by material desire. They don't see that. They just see that he's giving things. But the reason that he's Ashutosh, easily satisfied, easily gives things, is because he doesn't want to associate with these people. He knows he has to give them the things. This is duty. But he hates doing it. So what do you want? I can take it and go. And just go. And then he gets back to his chanting. So but, as we read, the conclusion is that the devotee of Lord Shiva is not dear to Lord Shiva, but the devotee of Lord Krishna is very dear to Lord Shiva. And that's why he's come to meet the Prachetas. Because they're pure devotees, very elevated, pure devotees, who have no desire other than to please the Lord, and for themselves they just don't care. They literally don't care at all. All they care about is, let us please Krishna. And for us, doesn't matter. So this is a pure devotee. And such a person is very dear to Lord Shiva. Therefore the verse says, Lord Shiva says in the verse, any person who surrendered to the Supreme Personality of Godhead Krishna, the controller of everything, material nature as well as the living entity, is actually very dear to me. And therefore he came to meet them. Hare Krishna.
Hare Krishna.
Srila Prabhupada. Any comments, questions?